Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to start on time, and we are going to make sure that we move through things expeditiously today, as there's several of our board members that do have other obligations this evening. So I want to make sure that as we have an opportunity, we can all hear the presentations today, but also want to keep in mind that we need to continue to move in a timely fashion, and there'll be obviously opportunity for follow-up from individuals that are speaking, or as a board if we need to also bring things back up. So thank you for that. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. 4:01. I'll now allow for anybody to disclose a conflict of interest if there's any. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is the mission statement. Dr. Nettles, would you be kind enough?
Absolutely. To improve the health and wellness of Nashville by providing equitable access to coordinated patient-centered care, supporting tomorrow's caregivers, and translating science into clinical practice.
Thank you. Next item is for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Next is the minutes. So we will be approving the Hospital Authority regular board meeting minutes for November the 20th. If everybody's had an opportunity to review those minutes, I'll accept a motion to approve. Second. So there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Hospital Authority special call meeting, December the 10th minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve those? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is old business, and we have Gallagher compensation study update with Jason Smith, who's a principal consultant, Chad Roeder, who is also a senior principal consultant. And just a quick moment.
Yeah, just a quick moment, and I'll be giving my board report as we go along. And so if you recall, a compensation study was requested by the board in July of last year. We did have a couple of hiccups with the first company. They were supposed to report in September, then it was moved to October. So I just wanted to say there's still work for us to be done with Gallagher, but they are here as promised and was scheduled to present at the January board meeting because of the snow. They are here today, but we do have additional things that we have to accomplish together. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Yeah, do you need to push?
Okay, it's on now. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Smith. Chad Rader's here with me from Gallagher. We're going to walk through our report to share some of our findings that we had doing the comp study. Chad also did a structure and staffing review as a kind of a side piece to this. But we're going to get into that in just a minute. Just to let you guys know, I'm Jason Smith. I'm a compensation practitioner. I've been in compensation for 20 years. 11 of those years were at a hospital system in Columbia, South Carolina called Palmetto Health, which is now part of Prisma Health. So this is a very, I was very excited to get this opportunity to work with another healthcare organization. But yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and get started now. And I think Chad's piece is up first, and he'll introduce himself. Well, and this, actually, I'll just walk through this. This is the chain of events that happened with our engagement. Now, this was probably, Nashville General probably holds a record for the quickest engagement we've ever gone through, ever. We started everything like the end of December, middle December, and we got it done in time for the last board meeting. But this is our process. You know, Chad started off with the org structure review, the org structure and staffing review. He interviewed a lot of, key stakeholders throughout the hospital. Then we got into the current state assessment very quickly to try and do kind of a pulse check to see if we could catch any outliers, anything that was going on that might be different. Then we get into the compensation study. Then we did the benchmarking where we market priced 80 of your jobs. And then we get into building a salary structure. Then we slot those jobs to the structure. And then we go through the cost analysis phase, and here we are at the executive summary phase. But before anything else, I'm going to go ahead and let Chad cover his structure and staffing review piece, and then I'll be up to take you through the rest of the exciting stuff.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Glad to be here this afternoon, and slightly warmer than we had originally scheduled back in January, so all good, all good. The first slide here really represents the scope of the organizational structure and staffing review, and I want to really kind of talk for a minute about how we do it. When a client requests this, we meet with them, and what we really try to do is narrow down on a list of questions that that client wants answers to. And those questions really define the scope of the study. And some of them have 3 or 4 questions like this one. Some of them have 7 or 8, you know. It just depends on what they're interested in. But if you look at these, what you see is questions about what's the recommended future state organizational structure, recommended leadership levels, and what's the roadmap to get there. And so, you know, there's, in terms of what we're talking about in the next few minutes, it's really a summary of the study's answers and recommendations relevant to those 3 questions. And it's really important to kind of get everybody on the same page about the questions first, because that really defines what we did and what we agreed to do for Nashville General. All right, can we go forward one slide, please? Okay. A little bit about our process, and we follow something pretty similar. There is a quantitative piece, there is a qualitative piece, and there's a piece where we take our own research and experience, and we have all 3 of those working together. And what we're really looking to do is pressure test all of our findings, all of our recommendations across each of those 3. Does it stand up to what we learned in the interviews, the qualitative piece? Does it stand up to what we learned in the job descriptions, in the organizational structure, et cetera? Does it stand up to some of our quantitative analyses? Does it stand up to what we've seen in other organizations, especially healthcare organizations that are similarly sized and whatnot? So that's just a quick overview of our process. Okay, can we go forward one more slide? Okay, thank you. So as Jason mentioned, I interviewed 10 different people, typically at the director and senior director level. And if we wanted to, we could spend an hour talking about what we learned in the interviews. I want to really try to summarize it with the findings here. And again, in the interest of time and in the interest of giving Jason time to go through his stuff, I'm really going to summarize what we heard in point number 1, point number 4, and point number 8, okay? Point number 1, and this is really, really critical, this would be one of the top 3 or 4 takeaways I would want people to leave my section with. In terms of the people that I interviewed, they felt heard and they felt addressed and responded to with regard to their requests for more people when in fact they had requests for more headcount. That's a really critical takeaway. We do a lot of work like this. This is a pretty rare finding, just to be completely honest, and a really positive one. That's for sure. Number 4, increased investment in data management and digital transformation. This is like a lot of other mission-oriented organizations, and what Nashville General and what a lot of other mission-oriented organizations have in common is that every incremental investment dollar tends to go to the mission first. And priorities like data management, priorities like leadership development, some other things that we'll talk about in the next few minutes, those tend to get what's left over, which is typically less than would be ideal. And so this really represents, it's a long, tough road, but it represents a huge area where additional investment would yield a lot of benefits. And again, when we talk about organizational structure and staffing, there's always the temptation to throw more people at work and to throw more people at problems. And you can always do that, and usually there is some incremental gain. But what we're recommending here, and we'll get into more detail on this later, but just to plant the seed, is really to take a step back and look at how can we improve the quality and the accuracy and the reliability of the data we have such that the same amount of people we have right now can be more productive, can do more work, okay? I will say this, it's a long, hard slog. People call it the digitization desert. They do not call it the digitization desert. Desert is in lots of sand, no water, a lot of tough work. But we do recommend that. The other one, number 8, was the other point I wanted to mention, more investment in career and leadership development programs. This is one where we think there is a tremendous amount of leverage to be had for Nashville General, meaning relatively small investments in career and leadership development programs would actually go a long way toward engaging the people that are here, toward improving the retention of the people that are here, and really getting the most out of people, meaning they're advancing in their careers in an ideal way. Okay, can we go forward one more? Oh, yeah.
Question on number 7, leadership time allocation, opportunity for improvement. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the interview questions, we had 1 or 2 different questions around time allocation. And what we would ask, again, most of these interviewees were either directors or senior directors, and we would ask them about, do you feel like you spend enough time on the right priorities for your role? Or conversely, do you feel like occasionally, or maybe frequently, you get pulled into things that should be done by your direct reports or should be done by other people? And again, I would say, to that point, we've worked with a lot of other organizations that are in way worse shape than Nashville General with regard to the extent to which people get pulled into, some might even say sucked into, problems and issues and processes that are just not a good use of their time. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, so what you see in green are questions that we agreed to with Nashville General to address in the study. And what you see in blue are recommendations as to how to address what we learned relevant to those questions. So I'll kind of go through these a little bit one at a time. Number 1, what's the recommended future state organizational structure? What does that really look like? And so without getting too deep into the weeds, because I want to give plenty of time left over for Jason, I think that with regard to project management, which is a really critical capability for any organization, but especially Nashville General with regard to where it is on its growth trajectory and maturation right now, what we recommend is that project management happen as it was intended to happen through the realignment that was recently done. That's a big one. The other one is really important to say with regard to organizational structure. We have a really specific point of view that might be a little bit different than what other consultancies have. And our point of view with regard to organizational structure is we want to set a really, really high bar with regard to what it takes to recommend a change in organizational structure. And the reason for that is any change in organizational structure, while they all might sound good or look good on paper, they tend to bring along a lot of disruption to day-to-day operational business. They tend to have oftentimes negative impacts to morale for certain people that get impacted. And so it doesn't mean we don't recommend changes to organizational structure, but what it does mean is that we set a really high bar. And if it seems like we make fewer recommendations than others might make, that's the primary reason why. What I'll mention very, very briefly, right now, obviously there's an interim CEO that is also functioning as the chief nursing officer. And again, the main recommendation would be to, as soon as a decision is made with regard to a permanent CEO, that all the functions that would report to the CNO go back to reporting to a full-time CNO. One of the other ones that's also mentioned in the report is a person charged with business development that would report to the CEO as soon as a permanent CEO is placed. I know that right now there's a senior director for marketing and patient experience. That person, as I understood it through the interviews, does have some responsibility for business development, but it's number 4, 5, or 6 on a long list of other responsibilities, and 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, whatever it might be, tend to take precedence. And so it's one of those things where if we're going to grow revenue the way we want, we need somebody really responsible for revenue growth. Okay. Question 2. how should the leadership levels work within the recommended future state? So there's a couple of different recommendations here. One of those is around titles and leadership levels. And we've got an entire framework that we put together specific to the levels within Nashville General. Jason is going to talk a little bit about some of the work with job titles and rationalizing those, getting those into a much better place with less unnecessary duplication. I'm going to show you kind of what that framework looks like in a couple of slides, but I'm just kind of laying the groundwork for it. Recommendation 4, a training program to improve several of the cultural attributes of the organization. So I'm going to read to you in a minute 4 cultural attributes, but again, we did interviews with 10 different directors, and in those interviews, we ask a lot of open-ended questions, and we do that because we want to see what bubbles up and what's important to the interviewees, as opposed to, closed-ended yes/no questions. And oftentimes what we found, really similar to data and the quality of the data, the higher it gets, the more productive people are. The quality of the culture also matters too. And the higher the quality of the culture can get, the more productive people are going to be. So again, instead of throwing more people at issues and problems, improvements to the culture tend to be a really good leverage point where small improvements to culture can make a really big difference in terms of productivity. I'm going to read through the cultural attributes, and in terms of where these are coming from, these were mentioned by interviewees and then pressure tested and validated by myself and Gallagher through our methodology as to would this make sense and have we seen similar cultural attributes. So for the desired future state culture, number 1, holding people accountable. Number 2, growing revenue and reducing costs. Number 3, involving others in decisions. And number 4, project management, okay? So it's just a way of saying, and we go into more detail on these in the report, but it's really just a way of saying, if we can take the culture that exists at Nashville General right now and make it a bit stronger in each of those 4 areas, everyone here, everyone that's employed is going to get incrementally more productive. And the need for more people goes down because you're able to get more out of the people here. Okay. Number 5, a leadership assessment and development initiative to look at the people in leadership roles right now and develop them against the needs of those roles, okay? Again, it's a mission-oriented organization. People have been moved into roles, sometimes in more expedient circumstances. And again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, not because no one here thinks it's important, but because everyone here is focused on the mission of the organization and putting as much money into that as possible. Leadership development has really been underinvested in as an area. And this would be a way to really start at the top level and incrementally work our way down and evaluate leaders against the needs of their specific roles, and for each one, create an individualized, customized development plan that helps them get stronger, better in their roles. That's something that a lot of other organizations do as a matter of course, but what we found in the interviews and looking at other data, it's just not been a big emphasis so far. Okay.
What does that look like, say, for a CEO?
Oh. If we were engaged to do this, we would want input from the board and we would want input from other stakeholders. But it's really looking at, what do you need in the next CEO? And that's it's a bit of a one-off role, and then direct reports to the CEO would be done a bit differently and so on and so forth. But a lot of it would really be, for the next CEO, what are going to be that individual's top leadership priorities, and it might be, and I'm making these up, but it might be we need somebody to reduce costs. We need somebody to improve our relationship with referring physicians, making those up. But then if those are the priorities, evaluating their experience, evaluating their relevant skill sets against those, and really coming up with a development plan to say, you bring a lot of good strengths to the table, but here's some things that ought to be on your radar to develop. relevant to your role. Does that answer that? Okay. Okay, perfect, thank you. So the last question was sort of the roadmap, right? The last project question, what is the recommended roadmap to get from the current state to the recommended future state? That's where recommendation 6 is where the data management comes in. And again, there's a lot more about this, that is in the report. What I will say is the positive of this is it doesn't have to be every single piece of data that's associated with the hospital. The biggest, most important first step for a data management initiative is figuring out what is the most important data for our most important processes and priorities. And the odds are that's probably only 20% of the data that exists right now. So you start there, figure out what subset of the data do we really need to improve in the way of accuracy, in the way of availability, in the way of formatting, in the way of user friendliness, so that when people use that data, they don't have to spend hours and hours pulling it from this place and that place and then reformatting it this way and that way. It's there. Again, there's a lot of hard work to be done to get to that end state, but it's an area where we think the hospital would benefit tremendously from every incremental dollar put into that. Okay. Career and leadership development framework, that's the other place where we see a lot of leverage. It will improve engagement. It will improve retention. It will improve the productivity of people in every role that's impacted. The way one of the directors that I interviewed described it to me is this individual said, I like working here, but I don't really understand where things are going in terms of my career. I don't know what a next job would look like. And if I don't know that, probably a lot of other people don't know it either. Okay. Recommendation 8 is a smaller one relatively. Improve the hiring process. There is probably room to implement sort of a talent pool approach for some of the high volume, high headcount positions where you've got people that have been at least partially vetted through the hiring process, and you can speed it up in terms of sort of posting to hiring. And then examining the hiring process for inefficiencies. We heard one or two things that we, might have some validity in terms of the speed between, identifying that a job needs to be filled and having somebody actually in that job. Okay, let's go forward one more. Okay, so I'm going to go through this really quickly, and I know everybody has a printout of this, so the small print you can look at your desk, at your table. But here's the idea. For every leadership level, we want to outline some leadership priorities that those people ought to be focused on. It doesn't mean it's the only thing, but it means those are kind of some of their key priorities. When we say time frame in this, we're really talking about the time frame in which they ought to be thinking and making decisions. It's going to be a lot longer for people in the senior levels and a lot shorter for people in the more junior leadership levels. And then decision rights should be pretty clear. What types of decisions should they be making? Okay? So I'm just going to outline a couple of the priorities so you get a feel for it. For the chief level, what are some of the key priorities? Short-term and long-term financial viability of the organization, strategic alignment across the different functions, modeling the behavioral and cultural attributes, building organizational capabilities. For the director level, there's a different set. So you've got one leadership level with one set of priorities, a different leadership level with a different set of priorities. So when you think about the director level, and this will be the last example in the interest of time, you're thinking about things like translating strategy into functional priorities, providing technical expertise, allocating resources at the functional level, policies and procedures for the function, right? And there's even a different set for supervisors and managers. Let's go ahead. Okay. Any questions before I turn it over to Jason?
Yeah. In your report, do you reference an individual that is responsible for most of the HR functions that you've recommended? And who would that person report to, and what job level would that be?
Yeah, great question. What I would say is it would depend. Some of those functions would be just cards on the table. Some of those, like the leadership assessment, assessing the current leaders and writing development plans, typically handled more by an external vendor. Things like data management, things like the...
But somebody's got to initiate that.
Right.
So where does that lie?
Well, honestly, HR can do it. My preference, everything else equal, would be that the CEO would serve as really the corporate sponsor for that particular initiative.
But still, an HR head would be at what level in your recommendations?
Well, in terms of, can you go back one slide or two? Maybe one. Right. So like recommendation 8, somebody at the director level in HR would definitely be charged with implementing recommendation 8. Recommendation 7, I think there is some value to getting some external guidance there, but that would also be at the HR director level to sort of, once it's been implemented, to maintain it and make sure everybody understands how to use it. That's really, really critical. And an internal HR director would be perfect for that.
May I ask also, the first scope question said recommended future state organizational structure, and one of the categories was headcount. Did you come to conclusions about what the recommended future state structure is for headcount, and how do you evaluate the appropriate headcount for our organization? What is it compared to? Is it compared to net revenue? Is it compared to patient admissions? How do you, do you have conclusions, and how do you determine that?
Right. So there are, again, we kind of go back to that high bar, and again, there's moving people around, and then there's adding headcount. We want a pretty high bar on adding headcount as well for a variety of reasons. The big areas where headcount would be needed, additional headcount, the person in charge of business development would be a big hire. That would be a direct report to the CEO. And again, that person, once they've ramped up, might have 1 or 2 other people, direct reports. The other big area is data management. In my view, and I think the head of IT would agree with this, their attention right now is on making sure sort of the trains run on time from an IT perspective. The data management would be 100% new work. If not 100%, 80, 90% new work. And so there would be new headcount. It would really depend on sort of the size and the speed of the data management project, how many incremental headcount you would need, though.
So aside from adding headcount in high priority areas, do you have any data, or do you come to any recommendation as to comparable organizations, and again, whatever metric you want to use, what our 600 something FTEs, how that compares to comparable institutions?
Yeah, I think I can tell you directionally, it's in the same ballpark. What makes that data, what requires really careful interpretation of that is those other comparable organizations, they're going to be in a different place with regard to things like data management, some of the services they offer. Not always better, not always worse, but definitely different, But I would say directionally, looking at it, it's in the ballpark. And then interviewing the directors, I'll be honest, that for me personally, that was the biggest single surprise. I expected to hear at least, 70, 80% of the directors say, we need more headcount, we got to have more headcount, et cetera, It really didn't materialize that way, which I think is probably the most positive takeaway of the whole org structure review.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
You mentioned in regards to that business development being a task formalized for a business development person, not rolled into a marketing person.
Right. I think, the way I see it, if you choose to implement that recommendation and hire somebody specifically focused on business development, I certainly think they would need a good relationship with the CEO. That kind of goes without saying. But the second most important relationship they would have would be with that marketing person. I think it's Senior Director of Marketing and Patient Experience. But, a lot of the business development would really be, focused on new locations, new clinics, new service offerings, things like that, that I think the senior director, the current person with marketing is busy with other priorities besides those. All right. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We'll get ready for some speed reading because we're going to go fast through this. And again, you have all of this information, so I'm not going to read the slides to you, but I'll add some color where I need to, for sure. If we can go to the first slide. So the current state assessment, the first step in that is interviewing key stakeholders. So we interviewed Dr. Brown, Dr. Blackledge, and Dr. Elders with some basic questions around what pain points might be today, what challenges they faced with the compensation program. And so these 5 common themes are what we came up with. We aggregated all their responses and came up with 5 common themes. Really, the need for a more structured and governed compensation program. But then workforce management, retention, and performance accountability are critical. HR systems, of course, you guys are implementing UKG right now, so that is definitely a critical piece of it. And I think Chad touched on data a good bit. Market positioning and constraints, that you're generally at market, and the numbers will show you in a minute that as a whole, you were at market, which is great. And then the need to align the culture with the compensation philosophy. And again, just like Chad, if y'all have any questions along the way, feel free to interrupt me. It's fine. I won't be offended. So little pieces of the current state assessment, we found, there were a lot of titles out there that had several different spellings of it. A phlebotomist, for example, there were 4 different spellings of that. There were 6 different patient access reps. Again, just wanted to point out that there was some inconsistency in the job title data in the current HR system, whatever it is. So, inconsistent application of lead in some job titles. There was a lead that was the only person in their department. So I guess that technically makes them a lead. One department had 33 employees, and of those 33, 7 were leads. Felt a little lead heavy. So again, I don't think the analysis has been done to kind of dive into those issues and see if there's opportunities to either make people leads or make people leads not leads. Lots of titles like director and manager and supervisor. That's it. I didn't know what they were the manager of. So there's a lot of cleanup that we did. We've created a consistent titling convention where all directors have director, comma, whatever the function is that they direct. All managers, manager, comma, this. So, and we also added the RN to any jobs, any leadership jobs that require it to be an RN. Just to keep that consistent. It helps with the data. It'll help in the long run, I promise. But yeah, overall, we started out with 362 unique job titles in your census file. We got that down to 247, which was a 32% decrease. So that's good. That doesn't mean go back and get back to 362 as quick as you can. That means just keep it where you are. But it really helps with reducing the administrative burden. It simplifies your budgeting process when you've got everybody in consistent titles. And it provides role clarity too. Next slide, please, and the one after that. So the compensation strategy is really what we met with Dr. Elders and Dr. Blackledge and DeLonda at the beginning of the engagement to talk through what the compensation strategy should be. This defines how we market price your jobs. This informs us on which cuts of survey data to use. So typically you see executives, you're looking nationally for executives. You're also the size of the organization they're coming from matters too. So we use net patient revenue of $250 million to make sure that was relevant. But as you go down the line with the different job groups, you get more localized and size of the organization matters less. Like it doesn't matter if you're getting a nurse from a bigger hospital system across the street, right? It just matters that they're a nurse locally. So that's it for the compensation strategy. And
May I
yes,
ask a question about that?
Yes.
Sorry. Is
please.
$250 million net patient revenue the smallest criteria you could use?
We mean this, for executives, that was, we have regression survey data with Gallagher that enables us to give more precise Yeah, that was what we went with. I mean, you can use number of beds as well, but we found that net patient revenue is the best.
I'm just saying, I think our net patient revenue is like $60 million.
That was what I got.
Okay.
Yeah. That was what? Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure so that I understand the data.
Sure.
That we're using as a comparison hospitals who have NPR of $250 million, and our hospital is a $60 million NPR.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
It stood out to me.
That's fine. Thank you for throwing that out. So 80 unique jobs were included in the study. 60.9% of the employees here are in those 80 jobs. So we worked with Delonda and Cece to kind of whittle down a list of job titles for us to benchmark in this engagement. The most meaningful ones, for sure, like the ones that have the most incumbents in them. So yes, we went through with 80 jobs were included in the study. We used 2 to 4 survey matches on each one. We age adjusted the data 3.5% to July 1st of this year, coming up, as it's a standard practice in market pricing. And the cost of labor for Nashville, cost of labor, not living. I know cost of living is a way different number here, but cost of labor, next slide, I'm sorry. Next slide, that one. Cost of labor at Nashville is 98.7% of the national average. So, which isn't terrible. It doesn't mean a bad thing. It just means that you've got a lot of service industry jobs here that drive down the cost of labor. So, all right, overall, this is a graph that represents the population that's below market, at market, and above market. Yes. It looks like overall, if you take everybody's pay and compare it to their market 50th percentile or the market value, then overall of the, I think it's 375 people in the 80 jobs that we benchmarked, it was 102.1%, which is solid. I've had clients come through and their first number is like 80%. They had a lot of work to do. But yeah, overall, it's pretty healthy, and that's a pretty good sample size of over half of your employees. And then 81.7% of them were either at market or above market. And those are the green blocks. So we went through and I didn't want to bore you with the details behind the pay structure because that's just numbers and math. But we built a pay structure based off of the market pricing that we did for all of your jobs. So total payroll, so we build the pay structure, we slot the jobs to the pay structure. So the jobs that we did not market price, we had to work with Delonda and everyone to figure out which pay grade the jobs we didn't price need to go into, kind of based on internal value, how they line up against other jobs. So with a new structure, you're always going to have people that fall below the new minimums because formerly there was not a structure here. So it's going to be about $78,000. These are fully annualized numbers, assuming a full year. This isn't saying that if these go into effect on July the 1st, that's a 6-month cost. We just assumed full 12 months for all these costs. But that only impacts 25 employees. So and that's great. In the new pay structure, there's only 25 employees that are below the new minimums. The cost to place, so once we get people to the minimums, we want to move them into the range based on their experience. So for like nurses, we have their license dates. So we can use their full experience for that, even time they worked before here. Other jobs, we were looking at job effective date to see how long they've been in that particular role. That was really critical with leadership jobs. But either way, the cost to place the employees in the range based on their experience or time and job is about $973,000 all in, which is not bad. And so altogether, you're looking at right over $1 million or 2.3% of payroll. And the cost of living adjustment that just happened, that did a lot to take a good piece out of this. So any questions on that? Because this is normally the one I get questions on. Because this is the money thing. Okay. And I'm almost done, so we'll be done. Just wanted to share, this is a scatter plot of everybody that was in our analysis. This is just people in those 80 jobs. So remember, it's those 375 people. This showed the light green dots at the bottom show their relationship to, the new structure before any increases are implemented. So this is the entire hospital, and it's really your R squared value before implementing these increases was 0.2186, which is a fairly weak R squared score. It means there's little correlation between experience and position and range, or compa ratio, which is it's your pay divided by the midpoint. So it tells you what that is. So after implementing those increases, you get a significant improvement up to 0.3569 of this population. Well, no, this is the whole population. I'm sorry, this is the whole population because we slotted everybody else's jobs that we didn't price. So we had information on everybody. So it moved you up to 3.3569, which is a significant improvement. Still not ideal. You can see there's a lot of these dots up here at the top that are way off from the rest of the herd that we might still need to investigate a little bit to get that. Maybe they have the wrong job effective date or hire date or whatever in the system that we used. Because surely somebody that's paid that high in their range should have a lot of experience behind them. So there are still some that we have to investigate. Now, the nurses look way better, but this is what I expected. The correlation of experience to comp ratio is much better for nurses because that's one thing you do have to keep straight, for sure, is to make sure that they are all paid equitably for their experience and their time. So, yeah, not much to say here other than just to brag on you all because this is a really good spot to be in for nursing. So long-term governance and sustainability, some things to just keep an eye on in the future. These are also things we can help out with as well, but implement a semi-annual pay audit to sustain that improvement in the R squared correlation. Immediately adopt salary administration guidelines to point out things like what you do when there's a red circled employee who's above the maximum of their pay range, to ensure that all employees are paid at least the range minimum, because now you'll have a structure and now you have guardrails to work within, and all the leaders will have guardrails to work within.
Question.
Yes.
So the 1.678 is what we're deficient in bringing people to the range, because you said it was 1.6 and then it was 78,000 I saw on that sheet, and there was an adjustment because the form said 3.6 and you said 2.3.
Did y'all not get them the new slides?
Yeah.
That's not the new slides. Yeah, this is January's slide, and thanks to the meeting getting canceled, we had more time to go in and find more stuff, so we were able to get that number down to 1 million.
So it's 1 million of variance.
Yeah, it's $1,051,000 to be exact.
Okay.
Well, kind of exact. I'm sorry. So yeah.
So in an ideal world,
I'm looking at that.
$1,051,000 needed to be distributed to bring all employees.
They would be targeted increases. It's not going to be like a cost of living adjustment. It would be people who are have a lot of experience but are paid low, and maybe they don't know it. Maybe they just.
And there were 25 people.
25 people
really
that are below the minimum of their new range that will get raised up to at least that, and then they'll move into the range based on their experience. So I'm sorry, I should have looked at that screen. I was looking at my updated slides here. So sorry about that.
I'll interject. We'll get those slides to you as soon as we get that from Gallagher. And then, I just want to say, so even though we have these numbers, we have to make sure we look at our budget. We need to, the time frame, that's why I introduced the notion in the beginning that there's still much more work to do, although the study is complete. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware.
And if I may, Madam Chair, this is really important. Mm-hmm. Because it gets to the core of what we do every single day and impacts every person here. And it comes back to the question I had, and I think my colleague asked as well, having a strong HR leader in-house, notwithstanding the addition of outside consultants like yourselves, but having somebody here who, in my view, reports to the CEO and directs all of this, so that we can accomplish many, if not all, of these recommendations in a timely fashion.
Right.
This is hard stuff. And we have to really look at this very carefully.
Yeah, Mr. Lesser, we just recently this week reclassified that chief HR position to a senior director of human resources, and they will report to the CEO.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions? I apologize. I should have looked up there. Yeah. But the numbers are different. I'll be sure that y'all get the printed out.
I'm a bit concerned about how big of a variance it is for employee X that's been here X amount of years that is paid at a level that is not commensurate with that body of experience. I don't want to throw a number out there, but just how much influence they can wield because they've been in the seat for so long and their compensation doesn't match their tenure.
That's what this does. This absolutely fixes that. So long tenured, low paid employees will get adjusted first. Those are the ones that we look at that stand out the most. It's the ones that are high paid, but with low tenure, we need to dig into to make sure that date that was in the old HR system is a date that needs to be used going forward.
And then after that date is verified, then there's another conversation, I'm sure that.
There's some more work that we're going to do, and there's some change management work coming up as well. So we've got you guys signed up for some change management work as well. So we're bringing in our change management expert to. We're meeting next week, right? Yeah, we're meeting next week to go over that, and you'll be hearing more about that soon. So.
This isn't the first, but this is the first of many conversations we'll be having from the executive leadership team level. And it seems like it's clearly a topic, one, that we brought up months ago that we wanted to do to start this, to make sure that everybody was being paid fairly and adequately, but also, too, from an aspirational standpoint. So how do I differentiate myself? If I'm the same type of job description and job title, how do I potentially move up? Is it just everybody rises with the tide? And coming from a different background, more of a entrepreneurial mindset, I believe that people who are doing a better job and working harder and have a higher level of knowledge and professional credentialing should be paid more. And those who are doing well within the organization, which requires reviews, right? Accurate reviews. Not everybody gets a meets kind of thing. So I think this is where the jumping off point, I know some of you are newer, but the impetus for having this compensation study done, we want to be in line. We want to make sure we're paying people not just adequately, but well, especially if they're going to work harder and do better than their other colleagues. And so we have to have a place to start. We knew it wasn't going to be perfect. We can't change what happened in the past, but at the end of the day, what we can do is set precedent for what happens going forward. So I think this is a really positive thing. In lieu of time, we've got a lot to cover tonight and a very little bit into time. So what I'd ask, if you do me a favor, there's lots of follow-up, I think, that needs to continue to take place with this. And I'd love for you gentlemen to come back again as we continue through this process, and we can definitely dig deeper and ask questions. If any of you have individual recommendations or engagement you'd like to have, Dr. Eldridge is very up to date and leading with CC this, so I would encourage you to reach out directly and have a specific conversation. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. So next on our agenda is conflict of interest revisions. Christy Lewis.
Thank you. My name is Christy Lewis, your Chief Compliance Officer, and I respectfully request that there be an amendment to our conflict of interest. If you look specifically on page 4 or 5 of the conflict of interest, and the removal is that it's under the exception under GB. What we want to remove is the if such gift, entertainment, or favor exceeds $100 in value, the employee shall disclose the nature and value of that gift, entertainment, or favor in a letter to the internal auditor of the Chief Compliance Officer. In this part here, it talks about the exception. Previously, on number 1, the family, it says whether that following do not constitute prohibited gifts and entertainments of favors. And if he talks about the family members or friends of long-standing, when the circumstances make it clear that it is the relationship rather than the nature of the business of the person's concern. So it seems like there is a bit of, I wouldn't say conflict, but it does seem that there is that we want to eliminate that inconsistency of having that reporting if it is among family or a longstanding friend, especially if it is an exception to reporting under that. So for that reason, I respectfully request that that the recommended removal of that language be approved.
Thank you. Any questions from our board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the new amended policy. Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, committee assignments, just briefly. We have one of our board members, Dr. Fisher, who has, due to his work schedule, is unable to fulfill his duties and participation for both the advancement and compliance committees. And so one of those committees, and maybe if we can talk Dr. Pitts into it, would be kind enough to join both the advancement and compliance committees. Those meet quarterly for our compliance at this point, and advancement every other month. So if you would be kind enough to slot into those spaces for this year, I would really appreciate that. And if it seems like she's nodding, being voluntold, right? No, we did have a conversation. So thank you for doing that. And with that, where's Derek? Derek, do we need a motion to approve her for the new committees? I think you make the nomination. Okay. So I would nominate Dr. Pitts for the Advancement and Compliance Committee, and also make note that we would be removing Dr. Fisher. Somebody like to approve? Motion. Second?
Second.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Will he still be a board member?
Yes, he will still be a member at this point. Yes,
Thank you.
That's correct. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Welcome. Next up is medical staff reports. Dr. Miller.
So we have two months due to having missed the last board meeting. So we'll start with the January report for initial appointments. Philip Brooks in psychiatry, Jonathan Burks in anesthesiology, Christian Karamia, anesthesiology, Ricky Grissom, pathology, Gerald Jones, surgery, Shulier Lucio, emergency medicine, Chelsea McMasters, anesthesiology, Valencia McShann, dentistry, Taylor Warren, CRNA, emergency medicine, Joseph Akima, cardiology, Douglas Altenberg. These are reappointments. Joseph Akima, Douglas Altenberg, urology, Terrence Crayon, family medicine, Henry Edwards, pathology, Brian Fisher, contracted surgery, Kendra Haslett, contracted OBGYN, Dejendra Kirky, internal medicine, Melvin Lightford, internal medicine, Calvin Mann, anesthesiology, Catherine Nash, surgery, Christopher Ruckman, emergency medicine, Clark Simmons, psychiatry, Amir Tahir, emergency medicine, Craig Turnovitz in surgery. He had an approval for privileges for 3 months, pending some questions on certification. Modification of privileges, Bolanle Asimbola, sorry about that, Department of Surgery, And temporary privileges pending board approval, Christian Karamia, anesthesiology, Philip Brooks, psychiatry, Taylor Warren, anesthesiology. And then resignations, Elliot Wagner, radiology, James Oka, radiology, Anna Knappler, emergency medicine, Rosalind Pope, psychiatry, Hal Roseman, internal medicine, Christian Sadlow, internal medicine, Janet George, internal medicine.
Thank you.
Do we want to approve that list and go to the
I was
next?
going to say, yeah. So do I hear a motion to approve the January Credentials Committee report? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
So Credentials Committee report for February, Jason Stevenson, teleradiology, Ben Hebron, emergency medicine, Jessica Neal, it's emergency medicine, Jennifer Winters, emergency medicine, Sajan Mahajan, teleradiology, Dr. Nazir, internal medicine, Adase Au, oral surgery, Tamwanda Awasanya, endocrinology, Kiosha Gaines, internal medicine, Victoria Gutierrez, internal medicine, Ben Maliakai, internal medicine, Jamie Miller, dermatology, Laura Woods, Meharry contracted, I'm not sure what department. Pediatrics, okay. And then Naomi Pascal, she is being put forward for refer and follow, but no admitting privileges. She does not meet criteria qualifications for active staff membership. Temporary privileges, Christian Karamia, anesthesiology, John Burks, anesthesiology, Chelsea McMaster's, anesthesiology, Stephen Miller, or resignation, Stephen Miller, surgery and orthopedics, modification of privileges, Brandon Allen, adding pediatric privileges. And pending review, a privilege form revision. I guess we don't have anybody there.
Great, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve, and we do, excuse me before saying this, Dr. Enzare, I'm sure you'll be recusing yourself since you have taken part in this specific committee report. So that being said, do I have a motion to approve this February credentials report?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Enzare. Okay, next up is the CEO Performance and Search Committee report. Mr. Escobar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to report that the CEO Search Committee and our consultant search firm have been very actively at work since our last meeting in December. Our search firm that is assisting us with this is AMN Healthcare. Since our last meeting, they undertook a comprehensive community assessment or listening session and met with, Ms. Lester, you may have the final numbers, around 25 to 30 external constituencies and stakeholders that included people who are elected officials, that included leaders of other hospitals and healthcare providers. It certainly included our partners at Meharry Medical College. It included senior staff at the hospital, thank you to the board members, most or all of whom met individually. All of these individual meetings were very useful for us to gather from the community, from our strongest partners, from internally, both executive team and board, the qualifications, the criteria and qualities that we are looking for in our next leader. And our consultants took that and turned it into a prospectus, which is a document that goes to candidates who are interested in this position to understand who we are, where the hospital is at this point in time, and what our vision and needs are for the future. Also to draft a media advisory, a sort of a press release to go out into on a nationwide basis, those who are interested, as well as some tweaks to the job description that we have in place. At our last committee meeting, we reviewed all of those, we provided input, and we finalized the prospectus, the media advisory, and the job description. We were also presented with a timeline for this search. Now that the search is underway in earnest, the relevant dates for the board to be aware of is that between now and April 1st, our consultants are going to take the candidate pool, and I'll speak about that separately in a minute, take the candidate pool and reduce it down to approximately 10 that they would like to present to the search committee for review, for the purpose of taking that group of 10, say first round, let's say, down to around 5 or 6 candidates who would then come in for a second round of interviews. We intend those to be in person with members of the search committee. At that point, those 5 or 6, the committee will meet again to reduce the pool to a set of finalists, which we would think would be 3, maybe less than 3, probably no more than 3. Those 3 finalists would then go through a more rigorous process of likely all-day or multi-day meetings with the board, the committee, again, community stakeholders who we want to be involved in this process, not because they have the final say, but because their input and getting to know these candidates is an important point of information for us, from which the committee will recommend to the board a candidate to negotiate and attempt to reach an agreement and have a chief executive officer. That whole process I've described, which kicks off at our April 1st meeting with the first kind of cuts of selection of first round, would be completed, we think, sometime in June. So we're looking at about a 2.5 month process from initial selection through making an offer to a finalist. I will say, Ms. Lester, do you have a?
I just wanted to add that there is a link on our hospital job site careers page that if you go to the careers page, if you're wanting to apply, you can be redirected to the B.E. Smith AMN website where you can actually put in an application there.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good to know. So for people on the board and who have individual candidates in mind, all of the interest is being funneled through our search firm, and that is for reasons of, in part, in reasons of fairness and equity to candidates, so that this process is being conducted by an external firm and no single relationship with any person on this board or anyone with the organization carries any more weight than another. It is the search firm that is gathering information, talking to candidates. That, as Ms. Lester said, this has been, is now nationwide, publicized. It is available through metro channels, through hospital channels, and the function of our search firm, which specializes in executive level healthcare searches, is they have an existing network of people who they are specifically targeting and groups that they are pushing this out to. And the board, I think, will be pleased to know that we are getting reports from AMN at our meetings about the level of interest. And at our last meeting, something upwards of 300 candidates have expressed interest in this position. and the yield on that, and that is those who have expressed interest and AMN speaks to, and then they maintain their interest, is around 18-20%, which AMN reports is a very high rate of people who are express initial interest and then remain interested. So not a surprise, but nice to confirm that this is a position that people are interested in. This is a position that is attracting a nice pool of candidates. And so we feel really good about the process. We feel good that it's underway. We have a timeline in place now. I will remind the board that our committee meetings are open to any board member, and we welcome any and every board member to attend, to learn about how this process, and certainly as we get down to finalists, then there'll be more direct ways for us to be involved, but welcome the participation of any member of the board as part of this search process. And would invite any of the members of the committee or others who have other thoughts on the status of the CEO search. Or any questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work and all the committee members. I know it does take a toll and takes a lot of work to get through these candidates. So I do know that there's several days set aside for interviewing. And it's a 9 to 3 day, and it's multiple days in a row. So I appreciate the work that you're doing to help lead everyone on this very important piece. So next up, Advancement Committee, Craig Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 3 quick items in the absence of a lot of time today. I'll save the marketing and PR activities, of which there are many, for a full report at the next board meeting. All good things. Second, 5 of us attended the legislative day on Tuesday, and I just want to commend the chair, Christy Smith, and Dr. Elders, who led our team along with Dr. Blackledge and Ms. Poole. I accompanied them, and it was really a solid day meeting with a number of legislators, both in the House and Senate, to confirm the working relationship that the board and the leadership of the hospital have, and that we are continuing to build the foundation for really good relationships at the legislature, not just among our friends, but among those who really can learn from the good things that are going on here and maybe even be stronger advocates for us. And third and last, but very important, we are almost at a full complement of having board members making a contribution to the foundation. If you have not, please consider making that foundation a contribution so that the foundation itself can, in requesting money from other foundations, et cetera, be able to say firmly that the full board of Nashville Hospital Authority is in support of what the hospital is trying to do and what the foundation is asking for. And with that, Madam Chair, I am done.
Thank you very much, and thanks for leading the effort, you and Kathy, on for the Day on the Hill. It was really tremendous and a great opportunity to even network with other healthcare providers and leaders in our community. And I will tell you, the comments I received back is that, wow, we haven't seen you guys, and definitely with this type of audience here to represent Nashville General Hospital. It was a tremendous gathering of our crew, both the executive leadership team and the board members. So I'd encourage you, if you have the opportunity as we do these more, and again, to be a representative of our board. So thank you. Next up is compliance, Dr. Martin and Christy Lewis.
I was going to give a brief report. You can add as needed. There are minutes from a meeting on February 4th, which was quite limited because of a long called board meeting before that. We had a very extensive and enlightening meeting yesterday, reporting on, among other things, cybersecurity, IT, coding accuracy, federal refunds, exclusion checks, a lot of interesting information about the pharmacy, particularly the 340B program, turnover rates, which are satisfactory, exit interviews, risk management, and compliance work plans, and litigation. The slides that were produced yesterday are in your packet for your review, and the minutes of the meetings of yesterday's meeting will be in next month's packet for consideration. Listed in the agenda under the Compliance Committee's recommendations to bring to the board concerning Tennessee Department of Health surveyors' findings. As you know, last week we received the 2567 form from CMS and responded promptly with a plan of correction that was to be considered by the Compliance Committee. However, the CMS and the state have asked for clarifications of that plan of correction, and this was only 2 days ago. So that will be forthcoming, and so this presentation and action by the board will be pushed forward to next month. Any questions for me or Ms. Lewis? We'd be glad to take.
Okay. Next up, thank you for that report and leading that committee. There was a lot at that committee, and so I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate also to executive leadership team having lots of different directors and people bringing to that committee what's going on in the hospital. And I would encourage you, similar to the invitations you attend that CEO committee, there's really a lot to unpack, and so it was very interesting to be able to learn there. So please join us if you want. Finance, Dr. Enzere and Dr. Blackledge.
I invite Dr. Blackledge to review the November, December reports.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I do have a question for compliance.
Yes, sir.
Is the hospital still carrying directors and officers insurance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Dr. Blackledge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's go. Ray will share the January financials.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Quickly here on the financials for January, starting with the income statement review. Regarding revenue, gross revenue was $5.1 million less than budget. We had significant issues related to the bad weather. We had clinic closures for 2 days, January 26th and 27th. We had a late opening day on January 28th. This was a direct impact on the revenue for the month of January. For expenses were $900,000 over budget, primarily due to two main things. Salaries were over budget by $323,000. And then we had leases and utilities that was exceeded budget. There was $375,000 of expenses that were unaccrued from a prior period that were included in the current period. And then the balance sheet, we just had some small adjustments related to our cash collections. Our cash balance decreased $1.7 million directly related to our cash collections in the month of January. We expect that to be caught up here in February. And then liabilities, no real change in our current liabilities or significant changes in the balance sheet. And our AP days are at 42. Any questions on income statement or balance sheet? Okay. And I think that's going to be it for the January review. I'll turn it over to Dr. Blackledge.
Before we move on, do we need to get a motion to approve our, we have provided the November, December, and January reports and financials, but we went over the latest in lieu of time today. I would need a motion to approve the November, December, and January financial reports.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Well, that's better. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll move to talk about one of the improvements we've had in the, within our organization around the accounts payables piece. Just want to share 3 probably statistics and move forward. So right here before you, you have our accounts payable trend. That's a 12-month trend based on, well, actually, not a 12-month. It says 12-month trend. 12-month trend based on our performance. And so what you see is 12 months ago, or last February, we were at 15.2 in accounts payable dollars due, short-term debt that was due to a vendor or a supplier of goods. At this point in time, as we closed January, we were at 8.3 million. So I want to make sure I share that with our board members. We can move to the next slide. When we think about our accounts payable days as a unit of measurement based on the performance from the organization, if we were to look at the months with the days indicators within that box, red box, that represents 120 months. What's represented as a result of the 120 months performance on AP days is calculating at 79 days on average. When we look at the FY26, that one line below there, that's at 54 days. So I want to make sure we share that. We can go to the next slide. All right, on this slide, this talks about just the most recent 12-month period. If we look at this 12-month period, you can see the trend moving down. This entire 12-month trend represents 69 accounts payable days. When we look at July through January solely only, that represents 54 days. The purpose of sharing this information is we spent a lot of money in February as we moved into the summer. This is some of the return on having effective process flows in place and some standardization of work. We still have a ways to go, but I just wanted to pause for a moment as an organization and share these improvements during this time in our board meeting. And this requires many hands within the organization because we have to go through automated approval pieces, sharing information, and holding one another accountable. So I wanted to just share that at this moment in time. Let's talk about the pay down of what we have remaining to continue. So you see this arrow. This arrow is representative of week periods, and then you have by month on the bottom. What it illustrates is our intent week over week to pay $100,000 on accounts payable debt that we have existing, right? So you saw on the previous slide, I think 8.3 million. So paying that out, some of that, a portion of that is going to be paid over time, $100,000 a week. There are times where we can pay $200,000. There are times where we can only pay $20,000. But what you do know is that our commitment, and you do understand and see where we have been. I want to pause right there to see if there are any questions. But wanted to make sure we share that. We also had a budget piece that we spoke to earlier. We're not going to go into the details of the budget in this meeting. Any questions, Madam Chair?
One question. So we, in going through 3 months, our patient revenue has been significantly below budget. Do we have a way of managing that?
Yes. So you're referring back to the financials, inpatient, outpatient gross revenue. Yes, and understanding too, we closed the month of January, and at the absolute end of the month, I forgot the dates, there were 3 days where we missed revenue for that. That in itself accounted for $4 million alone. So I don't have that report in front of me, but I believe it was $5 million variance in just that month's performance. $4 million of that was driven by the closure for almost 3 days. And so what we have to do to garner and collect on that revenue is we have to have the volume, we have to have patients in the bed, and we have to be treating those patients. And we continue to talk about growth strategies in our chief meetings, in all of our other meetings. Any other questions? And Madam Chair, let me know if you want me to proceed with the budget piece, but I know we have a time constraint.
We do, and just with regard to the budget, you'll be presenting that again.
Sure.
And this was just a brief glimpse for the Finance Committee.
Right,
So-
it was the submission for a month in February,
That's correct.
which had to be submitted.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
And excellent work with the pay down. and
Oh,
reducing that
absolutely
AP.
important. Appreciate that. That kudos goes to all of the staff, especially those that are in the room. So kudos to you.
Next up is contracts. So, Dr. Enter, if you'll run
Yes,
through
I
these
have
three contracts.
3 quick contracts to review. The first one is Healthmark Industries contract. This has to do with detergent sterilization in the operating room. This is an automated system. It's a new service agreement for a 3-year period. Auto renews for 1 year. It's included in this year's budget. No formal RFP process presented for approval.
Yeah, so a motion's been made. Is there a second on the Healthmark Industries contract? Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Baxter, for bringing that. Next up, RF
Second
Technologies.
is RF Technologies. It's an electronic alarm baby motion security system. It's a new equipment. Does not auto-renew, no out clause, no formal RFP process. The beauty of it, it's tied up with our Cerner electronic medical record system, also presented for approval.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The last one is a new contract for ambulance, Acadia System ambulance transport. This is to help us transport self-pay patients. The contract payment, it looks small, but that's because it's based on usage. So we want to get this approval if it's excessively used, because we get too many self-pay, it might go above the amount, but we're presenting a fair amount that represents what's likely based on prior history. So it's for 1 year, auto-renews, and it may vary based on use. So again, presented for approval.
Is this for transfer of patients?
Yes, to higher
other-
levels
higher
of care.
level care?
Yeah, self-pay patient.
Do I hear a motion to approve the Acadian Ambulance Services contract? Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up, Dr. Elders. Thank you.
So for the CEO report, I'm just going to take like 2 minutes. By the next board meeting, it will be a year since there was an administrative change. I was appointed as the acting manager on March 17th. This leadership team has done an amazing amount of work in such a short period of time under a tremendous amount of scrutiny. So I just want to give a shout out to the Nashville General Hospital leadership team and all they've done. And that is my report.
And you.
Thank you. We too are just are in awe of what the turnaround has looked like. I think you took the role, March 15th? 17th, March 17th. I mean, we've not even hit our 1 year mark. So as I will end how I started, which this is a big ship to turn. We've had a leader for over 10 years, and anytime you make a change in leadership, there's always new things that happen, processes that have been implemented. So when you think about this hospital, you're thinking about the financials, you're thinking about the operation, the physician and clinical staff, you're thinking about the growth trajectory, you're thinking about the lobbying efforts, you're thinking about the legal and the HR. it doesn't turn on a dime. And I've just been astounded at how quickly these have come into place. We've had certain, from a chronological standpoint, certain things have to happen to make sure other things happen. And you saw some of that come to bear today with today's presentation by Dr. Blackledge and where their financials stand. We're on the way. It doesn't come without missteps, and it doesn't come without hiccups, and as we all know, potholes in this city. So we will work together as a board, as a community, to move this hospital forward. We believe in the mission. That's why we're all here. So I appreciate your work, your leadership, for all of you who are on committees and leading those committees. I'm excited about where we're going together, both with Meharry and with Metro. So again, I appreciate each of you, and with that, that's the end of my close. So I will take a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? I'm sure we're all in favor. No opposed. Thank you. Have a good evening.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.